Good day, everyone. I realize we've not talked about this, so let's talk about this particular aspect of research. We've always heard about it, mixed methods research. And honestly, once you truly understand it, it becomes one of the most practical and powerful research approaches you can ever use. So don't think of it as those dry academic topics filled with confusing definitions. It is about combining numbers with human experiences, facts with feelings, statistics with real life explanations. And once you get that idea clearly, everything else begins to make sense. So, what is mixed methods research? Let's start very simply. Mixed methods research is a research approach that combines quantitative research and qualitative research in one single study. That is the foundation. And we know by now that quantitative research deals with numbers like percentages, age, income, anything numerical. And we also know that qualitative research deals with experiences, opinions, emotions, stories, and meanings. Now, imagine this situation. A school notices that students are performing poorly in mathematics. A quantitative researcher may distribute test scores or surveys around that and discover that 72% of students failed mathematics. That gives useful information, but it still leaves us an important question unanswered. Why are the students failing? That is where qualitative research comes in. So the researcher may now interview students and discover things like the teacher moves too fast, students are afraid to ask questions, most students don't study at home because of noisy environments, some students never understood the basics from earlier classes. Let's look at what has happened here. The numbers showed us what was happening. It showed us the what. The interviews explained why it was happening. And when both are combined together, the researcher now has a fuller understanding. That combination is mixed methods research. The purpose of mixed methods research is not just to collect two kinds of data for decoration. The real goal is integration. That word is important, integration. It means combining both forms of information together so they can help explain each other. So mixed methods research tries to answer questions more completely than using only one method alone. Because in the real life, there's usually complexity, and complex problems often need more than one angle to, understand them properly. Think about a doctor treating a patient. The doctor checks blood pressure, temperature, and lab test results. These are all quantitative. But again, the doctor asks, how are you feeling? When did the pain begin? What makes it worse? How has this affected your daily life? You see, those questions are qualitative. Imagine if the doctor only looked at the numbers and never listened to the patient, or maybe he only listened to the patient and never checked the medical test. That would really be incomplete. So mixed methods research works the same way. And we use mixed methods for a couple of reasons. Because sometimes numbers alone are not enough, sometimes stories alone are not enough. But together they become powerful. So these are some of the important reasons researchers use mixed methods. And we can even go further by saying that mixed methods are used to get a complete picture. Numbers can show you patterns when human experiences explain those patterns. So to get a complete picture, you use mixed methods. And they also used to explain a result better. Because sometimes researchers get surprising numerical results, but mixed methods helps explain them, right? Imagine a company discovers through surveys that workers are unhappy despite receiving good salaries. That sounds very strange, but interviews may then reveal toxic management, lack of appreciation, stressful work conditions. So this will now make the numbers they've gotten make sense. The mixed methods is also done to make findings more trustworthy. When both numbers and personal experiences point toward the same conclusion, then that means the research becomes stronger because the two results validate each other. So what does mixed methods research involve? Many students think mixed methods simply means use questionnaires and interviews. No, it actually involves much more than that. A proper mixed methods usually includes these major parts. So let's look at the components. Number one, a research problem. Everything begins with a problem that cannot fully be understood with only one method. Example, how does social media affect students' academic performance and mental health? Notice that this question involves both measurable things and personal experiences. So that makes mixed methods suitable. Then two, another component is quantitative data. This is the numerical side. Researchers may use surveys, questionnaires, statistical records. right? Then we also have to include qualitative data as a component here. And this is the deeper explanatory side, as we all know. Then another component is the data analysis. So the researcher analyzes both sets of data, and quantitative data may involve percentages, graphs, averages, statistics. The qualitative data may involve things, common ideas, repeated experiences, or patterns in the responses given. Then the other component is integration. And this again is the heart of mixed methods. The researcher finally combines the findings together, not separately, together. For example, survey results may show students who spend over 6 hours online perform worse academically. And the interviews may then reveal that they sleep late, or they lose concentration, or they feel addicted to scrolling TikTok. Now the findings support each other. That is all integration is about. Now we have different types of mixed methods research. We have different types. So let's look at the major types. And again, this part is not complex. This part becomes easy if you focus on only one thing. The only difference is that the order in which data is collected defines the type of mixed methods research it is. So the first type, convergent parallel design. I mean, this sounds complicated, but the idea is very simple. In this design, the researcher collects quantitative and qualitative data at the same time. Note the key phrases, at the same time. So after collecting it, he or she then analyzes both separately, then compares the findings. Imagine researching student satisfaction in a school. At the same time, you give questionnaires to 500 students and also interview 20 students deeply. After collecting both data, you compare the results. Maybe the survey says most students dislike the cafeteria food. Then the interviews explain that meals are repetitive and unhealthy. So both findings connect. That is convergent design. And when is this useful? This is useful when the researcher wants multiple perspectives at the same time. Then the next type, we have explanatory sequential design. Explanatory sequential design. This one starts with the numbers first, then explanations later. So here the first step is to collect quantitative data. Then you use qualitative data to explain the results. So you start with the numbers first, then the explanations come later. An example could be that a survey reveals that students in one department fail more often than others. So the researcher then interviews those students to understand why. Possible findings could be that there are poor teaching methods used, there's lack of materials, they have family stress, or there's a fear of lecturers. So the interviews explain the statistics. So that is explanatory sequential design. So just remember it this way: numbers first, explanations second. Then the third type of mixed methods research, exploratory sequential design. This is the opposite. Here the researcher starts with the qualitative research first, just to explore the topic. Then later uses quantitative research to test or measure the findings. An example could be a researcher interviews teenagers about cyberbullying. The interviews reveal common experiences like depression, fear, isolation, anxiety. The researcher then creates a survey based on those findings and distributes it to thousands of students to see how widespread those experiences are. That is exploratory sequential design. So a simple way to remember it is explore first, then measure later. Then the fourth type, we have embedded design. So here one method is more important than the other. The smaller method is embedded inside the larger one. Again, one method here is important than the other method, and the smaller method is embedded inside the larger one. For example, a researcher mainly conducts a large survey about online learning. He or she also interviews a few students for deeper understanding. So the survey, that is the quantitative survey, is the main method. The interviews simply support it. That is embedded design. So those are the types. Now let's look at a practical example of mixed methods. Let's build, let's say, one complete example so everything becomes even clearer. Suppose you want to study something like, why are many students missing classes? Why are many university students missing classes? A quantitative approach alone may show that 65% miss classes regularly. Most absences happen on Mondays. First-year students miss more classes. This is a very useful set of findings, but it is incomplete. A qualitative approach may also reveal something like transportation problems, lack of motivation, financial difficulties, boring lectures, and also mental stress. Now imagine combining both findings. You can now answer how many students miss classes and why they miss classes. That is strong research, and that is also mixed methods. That is just it. And again, let's talk about the advantages of mixed methods research and why most people like this approach. Number one, it gives you deeper understanding. You see both the big picture and the personal experiences. It also makes research stronger. Of course, when findings support each other, the study becomes more credible. It also helps explain complex problems. Real-life issues are usually complicated, but mixed methods handles complexity better than any other type of design. Then it also allows flexibility. Researchers can adapt methods depending on the problem you are studying. But, as with everything, there's also challenges. Mixed methods is powerful, but it can be demanding. Number one, it takes more time. You are handling two kinds of research together. That means more planning, more data collection, more analysis. And it can also be expensive. You need more tools, more participants, more effort. And also, data can conflict. This is one scary thing. Sometimes numbers say one thing whilst the interviews say another. For example, a survey says workers are satisfied, but the interviews may reveal hidden frustration. You as the researcher must carefully interpret the findings. Then it also requires skill. Of course, the researcher must understand both quantitative and qualitative methods properly. So those are the challenges. Then how do you know when you are ready to use mixed methods, or how to know when to use mixed methods? You should use mixed methods when one method alone is not enough, right? Or when you need both statistics and explanations. You should also use them when you want deeper understanding and also when the topic is complex, or when you need stronger evidence. Do not use mixed methods simply because it sounds impressive to you. Use it because the research problem truly requires it. So that is all about mixed methods. And whenever you are confused about whether a study is mixed methods and you are reading, just ask yourself this: did the researcher use both numbers and human experiences in one study? If yes, then it is likely mixed methods. And also ask yourself, how were they combined? That alone will tell you the design type, what type of mixed methods it is. So mixed methods research is really all about balance. Balance between facts and feelings, statistics and stories, between measurement and meaning. And honestly, that is how the real life itself works. Human beings are not just numbers, but also we are not just emotions either. So that is all about mixed methods, and good research understands both of these. So as students, don't be afraid of mixed methods research. Once you stop focusing on the long academic terms and focus on the simple idea behind it, it becomes very practical. You are simply trying to understand the problem from multiple angles, so your conclusions become richer, clearer, and more reliable. And that is what good research should always do. So now we've come to the end of this session. Let me know what else you want covered. And thank you. See you in the next one.